Just want to send thoughts and prayers out to Peru. The folks in that region suffered an 8.0 magnitude earthquake about 10 hours ago, I think it is now, 10, 12 hours. It's a not very heavily populated region of Peru. The reports of damage have been limited, and I don't think it's going to be something that causes a lot of death, just because of where it was and how deep it was. But the subject of today's video is not that. I've been looking at this issue with Ebola for a while, and also this issue going on in our country with two different diseases, typhus, and primarily in South America, dengue. Now, looking here at Global Incident Map, you can see all over South, Central America, and Mexico, there are cases everywhere of dengue. This happens every time this year. That's not anything strange. But the outbreak of typhus in Los Angeles, predicted by Dr. Drew to be this major epidemiological event that might kill many people, it wouldn't be hard to mistake the three, dengue, typhus, and Ebola. And I brought those up here in a picture just to show you. Below, at the bottom here, this is of course Ebola. Upper right, this is the virus that causes dengue. Typhus is a bacterial infection that makes it a little bit different in how you treat it and how it spreads. But let's just imagine for a minute that there was this large homeless encampment somewhere in a major city in America. And of course, the people in that homeless encampment would be regular visitors to their local healthcare facilities. And maybe one day one gets diagnosed with typhus, which would be common. And then they get their treatment, they go back out, and then maybe they come across somebody who's had dengue. And they go back in and they're talking to someone else maybe 3 or 4 days later. And then they relate, well, I was, diagnosed with having typhus. So maybe they do the blood work, maybe they don't. But they continue to treat them for those two. Now, that's not going to be that big of a deal if one gets mistaken for the other in that case. But what if it's a case of Ebola? What if it's a case of Ebola that they present virtually identically? Here's a map of the outbreaks of typhus in LA County. This is what I think is going to happen. There's going to be somebody come in who either will infect someone with Ebola, and it's going to get diagnosed as either dengue or typhus initially. Or the person could have both. There's no rule in the world that says you couldn't have all three. And if they're looking for one thing to try to get them through the emergency room quick, they're just going to treat them for the one and they're not going to look any further. Not every time when you go into a healthcare facility do they test or screen you for every possible thing out there. That was actually the subject of a lot of, I don't know if a lot of you guys watched House, but that was literally the plot of nearly the entire series. A patient would come in and regular doctors would think it's one thing, but of course House, being the genius that he is, would look for the things that aren't so apparent and then find that it's other things. And there would be 2 or 3 things wrong. See, if we look here at the symptoms of dengue, sudden onset fever, headache, mouth and nose bleeding. This is dengue. This is the thing in South America. Muscle joint pains, vomiting, rash, diarrhea. This is symptoms of dengue. Okay? Now here are symptoms of Ebola. Headache, fatigue, fever, muscle soreness, sudden vomiting, blood, brain damage, bleeding from the nose and mouth. This is Ebola. And this is dengue. Dengue is common. Dengue is all over South America and Central America, and probably here now. Then you add this into the equation. Massive nursing shortage in California. They're going to be trying to push people through as fast as they can. And if it's somebody who's come in and presented before with normal, everyday things that homeless people have. They're not going to normally think Ebola. I mean, maybe the person who's actually carrying the Ebola infects someone else and that other person comes in. I'm sure if somebody came in and they spoke no English and they said, I am from the Congo, they might probably give them more attention. But if that person isn't the one coming in, that they've just infected someone else, they won't have any reason to think that this normal, everyday American homeless person is going to be infected with that. Because of the transitory nature of these encampments that they have that have exploded. And I mean, I'm not going to get into a debate of why or what's better. Florida is one of the most pro-capitalist states out there, and we have these types of encampments everywhere. There's areas in Florida, very close to where I live, where you have houses that are in the millions of dollars. Neighborhoods that you can't get in minimum $500,000 just to get the base house. And literally, you could drive 20 minutes and find these encampments. This is what I think the problem is going to be. There's going to be a misdiagnosis somewhere. Someone's going to drop the ball. And it won't really be their fault. It really won't be their fault. Because they see so many coming and going. And, they diagnose them and they say, okay, you have typhus. They might have typhus. They might also have Ebola. If people don't start taking this seriously. Because the symptoms are literally identical. Now, dengue gets through the population with mosquitoes. And with the hot season coming up, summer coming up, that's going to spread it. That's why it spreads so much in South America. There's no reason to say that they wouldn't make it here. So we might have somebody says, oh, well, now we have dengue and now we have typhus to worry about. And so they start diagnosing for those things. And they start talking about that, but it's just going to take one. And I'd like to play this real quick. It's a video I found on YouTube. It's called A Tale of Typhus. It's just a basic, primer on the disease. We'll go ahead and play this forward.
Today we're talking about two forms of rickettsia typhus and rickettsia prowazekii. Known for causing endemic typhus, rickettsia typhi is a nasty little bug carried in rat fleas and passed via flea from human to human through the fecal matter around flea bites. The diseased microbes multiply in the cytoplasm and pass through the cell membranes to infect its neighbors. Symptoms include headache, fever, joint pain, vomiting, and rash. Next up is Rickettsia prowazekii, the bug responsible for endemic typhus. Going in the intestinal tract of lice, this bug also enters the body through fecal matter. Symptoms include headache, fever, cough, muscle pain, dropping blood pressure, stupor, photosensitivity, delirium, and death, with a 40% mortality rate. Thank you, and good evening.
Okay, so that disease is no joke in and of itself. So this is the problem I really think we're going to be facing this coming summer. There's going to be a lot of reports of different diseases in different cities. And people are going to watch the news and they're going to go, oh, whew, it's just dengue. Oh my gosh, well, it's just typhus. They're not going to know. That's going to be the problem. Everybody talking about the issue with Ebola, literally every person who has come forward and got in front of microphones has said, we don't have a good handle on the spread. Our numbers are probably not accurate. This is the first time this has happened in a war zone. You couple that with the amount of military personnel that we have in that region, it could have spread as far as Nairobi, Kenya by now. they aren't going to know because of so many other diseases that mimic the exact same symptoms. And with Ebola, you have to test for it specifically. And if somebody gets into an ER, somebody gets into a local quick care facility, that's all it's going to take. Wrong person, the wrong time, somebody goes in for a sprained ankle, and they're sitting next to somebody who's there just with a cough. That's all it's going to take. And if that person dies, you're not going to have a chance to interview them with, how many people have you been in contact with, or where have you been going recently? And that's how it's going to spread, unfortunately. So be very diligent about where you need to go, where you might need to go. Those of you who talk about homeopathic medicine, if you don't need to go to the ER, don't. I'm all for that. I hate the hospital. I hate even going to urgent care. If there's one trip you cannot make it that one. If you don't have to, I've talked about having the grocery delivery thing. It's not perfect. You're right. You have people that are involved, but it's one less. And let me be very clear about this. To hire somebody just to go down to your local grocery store and do what you would normally do and then bring it to you, that actually adds a person to the step. That's bad. I'm talking about just ordering the stuff directly on Amazon. If you have to go for something that you can get that way. I'm out of Gatorade, or I'm out of this dry food product. Yes, people are going to handle it, but it doesn't put you in a position to have to go to a grocery store where thousands and thousands of people have come in and out and touch everything. And God knows, maybe the one box of the one thing that you pick up is the box that the sick guy picked up and put back down. You never know. I mean, nothing is perfect. I think most Americans don't engage in the types of behaviors that would put them at risk for contracting this directly. But it's going to be the indirect that's going to get this through our population. That's going to be the bad part. Gas pumps, I mean, have a glove. Have a glove you can throw away. When it comes to gas pumps, pay at the pumps, especially if you're going inside to get anything from inside the store, especially the 24-hour places. Because that's unfortunately where a lot of the homeless spend their time. And they're going to be at most risk for this. So anyway, that's what I wanted today's video to be about. The case of mistaken identity. Like, share, subscribe.